Okay, welcome to podcast number 7, the unfair advantage that we have and you have to make music income. So before we begin the show, just some things that I want to announce. Make sure and check out the brand new website, makemusicincome.com. I just finished it and made it live on January 1st, 2022. So it is up and has information about all the things we do at Make Music Income, including services like our one-on-one coaching for composers, producers, and artists, as well as our private music licensing mastermind group. And Steve, I want you to get involved in that, by the way, that you can be a part of. So make sure and check out and take a look at the new site, makemusicincome.com. You'll find it in the description below of the show notes. Also, if you are listening to this podcast on Spotify, make sure to take our weekly poll and or question that we put up there, because we love your input. We always put a poll up there, and so far we've been getting a handful of answers, but we'd love to get more because we always put a poll up about what we are talking about. Or you can ask a question on there and people can type in a question. So maybe this week's question will be, what unfair advantages do you have? And so we'll ask that. And then once we get enough, so far there's not really been enough to talk about, but once we get enough responses, that's something we can include on later shows. So as always, we'll start with our weekly updates as busy composers, producers, and music licensors. Music licensors?
That's a word.
Music licensors.
It's a word now.
Steve, you've got some exciting stuff that's happened this week. How are you, man?
I'm doing good, man. I had a pretty busy week as usual. Made some interesting progress on a few fronts. It feels good. I feel good about this year so far. I'm really revved up about the whole year. As you know, I got a bunch of things that I want to tackle. But like we talked about on a previous podcast episode, my main focus is just on writing like a lot of music throughout this year.
Same.
And so I've been carving out a much larger slice of every day to just write, to sit down and write, always in the mornings when my mind is fresh. But only a week into January, I've written like a handful of new tracks, all of which were meant to be pitches for Taxi. Speaking of Taxi, I did finally get hear back on one of the tracks. I did get a forward on one of my submissions, which felt really good. And the ones that didn't get forwarded will be, uploaded to stock libraries. So we're off to a good start this year in terms of writing output. In other news, I'm getting really excited for this scoring competition that I was talking about last time we spoke. I'm putting this together for the Academy. So about a week ago, I decided to start reaching out to a handful of sample library and plugin developers and asking them if they'd be interested in sponsoring the contest by, providing a free license for one of their products for the prize package. And most of them have not returned my emails just yet, but a couple of them did. A couple of my favorite ones did, actually. Specifically, the creator of the Wolf compressor got back to me personally, said he'd be happy to support the contest. I'm a huge fan of everything that Goodhurts does, everything they put out. And the Wolf compressor has long been a staple of my plugin arsenal. So go check out goodhurts.co and have a look at some of their amazing products. Also, Kush Audio got back to me, and they're going to throw in one of their amazing saturation plugins into the bundle. Kush Audio is amazing. They make amazing stuff. They make hardware and software, and they have an awesome YouTube channel. So I'll just push them too. Go check out House of Kush on YouTube. Gregory Scott is the man behind the whole Kush stuff, and he's super entertaining. Has amazing videos, really great educational videos on mixing and producing. So other than that, we're all waiting for Motion Array to come up with this new update for like the dashboard for the composers. For those of you who aren't on Motion Array, they basically kind of overhauled the whole system, and we're all kind of waiting in suspense as to what it's going to look like when they do put out the new back end for the authors. There's some big changes going over there. So we're all kind of in the dark with our earnings thus far, but I guess I'm cautiously optimistic about what they've got up their sleeves, and we'll see how it goes. How about you, man?
Yeah, I'm also writing this week, not necessarily taxi prompted. By the way, did you? I don't know if you saw my little note, but you did like a neo soul
Yeah, you saw the brief for
thing,
that.
and it looked like that was since you had just done one for the taxi brief. I wonder if that was taxi brief inspired as
Oh, yeah.
well. Is that the same one?
Yeah, yeah. Someone else was asking me for the link to the brief. I put it in the thread there. So
I was about to do something for that brief, but it was too soon. I think
Right.
wasn't it yesterday or something like that it was due, or today?
no,
or
the
something like
ninth.
that?
So yeah, it's a few days away.
I just didn't. I wasn't feeling it, and so last week I worked on a new song and uploaded to Motion Array, and it's already in Motion Array. It was my copy of your song I told you about.
Oh, nice.
And then this week I've been writing kind of a funky thing with just a funk bass thing with percussion. But you are related to this tune as well because I did use one of your risers in
nice.
this tune. So anyway, I'm about, I'm second time through. Sometimes when you're creating a song, you do the first time and you're like, I'm not sure if that's going to be good or not. I'll see. I'll listen again tomorrow. So today I listened. I'm like, that's pretty good. That's gonna be pretty good. So
Awesome.
I did a little bit more work on it today to the point where I was like, okay, I'm done for today on this. I'll come back tomorrow and finish it up. So that's coming up. Yeah, and I got 2 other songs accepted into Motion Array this week. And here's a little tip for you if you are in Motion Array. You need to be watching the Motion Array requests. And it's on their website. They have requests that clients are looking for apparently, and they're in all of their categories, templates, web templates and all this kind of stuff. But they have music ones about a couple a month. There's not a ton of them, but here's the thing: they close very fast. Once they get, I guess they wait for a certain amount of, and then they close it and they say we don't need any more. It's done. So I saw it while it was open. It happened to be gospel tunes. I doubt the gospel ones I sent are gospel enough. They were really wanting black gospel, traditional gospel type songs with choir, and mine did have choir type vocals on them, but they might be a little too contemporary. But anyway, both of them are up now on Motion Array and got up in one day. I put them up on the day that and when I looked, it was at 900 in the queue. The next day it was up. Wow. So you get preference on those songs because they have to look at that and close that request down and that brief down. Right. They will go ahead, and if they like it, they'll go ahead and accept it. So it's kind of a fast lane into getting your Motion Array song accepted if you create and pitch that. But you like, just like most like ad briefs, that a guy comes asking, hey, you got anything for this? It probably closes it that day or the next day or in the next few days. So you don't really have time to spend a week working on something, because if you do, by the time you do get it done, it's going to be closed.
Yeah, and they reward the best submissions with like a cash prize.
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, that's nice. I'm just happy they're both in, and one of them is already doing well in their staff picks in the inspirational category. Although it's hard to know since we can't see our stats as usual as to what songs are taken off. You can usually see that as far as income per day with Motion Array. So like you, hoping that comes back in sometime this month, because it's not asking too much to know how much your songs are making. We know that with every other library that there is. The day you get a sale, you're told. And so even though I know Motion Array calculates it differently than other libraries, still it's going to be nice to get that back again.
Yeah, they're big overhauls, those kinds of things. So
you can tell it's a big overhaul. So. But they have been super responsive to me email-wise. I put that in our Discord, what they've said exactly. And shout out to Valentin. I hope I'm saying his name right. But he has been super responsive, as well as Maya G, who has been very responsive at Motion Array. And they do watch this channel, by the way. They did thank me for the video that I did on them recently and things like that. So they're watching our channel. They watch your channel as well. And so they're they're good folks and they're working hard, and I'm still happy to be part of Motion Array.
Yeah, same here.
In my sync licensing side, I was working this morning on my classical album for one of my exclusive libraries, and it's always good to wake up to Mozart. It just always is. I mean, there's almost no bad thing about. I was working on a piano piece by Mozart today, and just listening to it is just, it makes you smile in the morning. You know?
Yeah.
It was the first thing I worked on. I just went right to it, and then. And then I'm also this and next week starting to get my country album that I started in December going, to add a few more songs, and then find Nashville vocalists and LA vocalists to sing on this country album. So if you're a pro country album, a pro country vocalist, and you're listening to this podcast, I might have a gig for you.
Nice.
If you want to be on a song that's going to be in a Sony BMG library. So that's what's going on. And then finally, just working a lot on obviously getting the website up, getting that just right. I don't have any complicated, I don't know what you use. You probably can use your course now to take payments on all the different things you sell and things, but I just do it through eBay, through PayPal. And so I use PayPal buttons. It's super low tech, but I've been doing it for years, and it's worked.
The lower the
great.
tech, the better in many cases. The website looks great, by the way, and I think it's just simple, it's straightforward. That's what a website should be. Shouldn't be too cluttered. Things look good.
Again, as I talk about in the video that I just released today about how I can help people, I didn't get into making a YouTube channel so that I could make more money doing more consulting. I mean, I do it, and I have 2 calls today, 2 consulting calls, coaching calls today, and I like doing it. But I did it because I wanted to share my experiences in what we're talking about, this stock licensing and all the licensing stuff, basically, and talk about how I make income and things like that. But the big thing I've been working on this week, and this final thing, is my new ebook and course about royalty-free libraries. And
Nice.
It's kind of an intro mini course, if you will. It's not going to be overly expensive, but I'm writing as an ebook, but I did a poll and people overwhelmingly said they prefer a course. So I'm going to make a course out of it and include the ebook. That way people can refer to the PDF from time to time if they want to know, because it basically just goes through all the libraries, even ones I'm not part of, things I know about them, even if I'm not on them,
Right.
and how to get in them, on all that kind of stuff. It's not the course that's going to really show screens of how to upload step by step. That's another thing that's coming down the pike. But this is a main question I get a lot is, what are all the libraries? How do I find them? What are all the stock libraries? Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people just need that at their fingertips all the time, because you can't sit in one night and go through them all and put all your music in all of them. It takes a while to go through and do all that. For my last thing, I know I said the last thing was the last thing, but here's the last thing. It's good to be getting our podcast up on YouTube, and if you are listening to this on a podcast player and you're just listening to the audio, we do now put our podcast up on our YouTube channels. You can see it either on Steve's channel or on Steve's channel, Production Music Academy, or on the Make Music Income YouTube channel. And we're going to be putting some markers in there so you can find your way around if you don't have that much time to listen to the whole thing, or you can just listen on YouTube on your phone if you want to, in your car or wherever you are. So we just put the first one up last week. We're putting another one up tomorrow, and you're just going to see all the podcasts going back to number 1, mm-hmm. and then every new podcast will come out on Monday morning.
Yeah, I'm putting episode 1 up tomorrow.
Yep.
On my channel.
We put up episode 6 as the first one on YouTube, and now we're going to catch you up by putting them up on Mondays and Fridays until we're caught up there. Okay, so let's get to today's topic. And this is a really interesting one that Steve brought up and brought to me this week, and something I hadn't heard of, just as I had not heard of unfair advantage. And but since I've done a lot of reading on it, and it's really an interesting thing, and it's absolutely something I've been teaching, without calling it this, for about 15 or 20 years in my workshops with artists and songwriters, and usually I would have an art. And the first thing we talked about was my story and how I came up and how it got me where I am. And then I would do their story. Actually, I did that in reverse. I would do their story first, and then I would do my story as a person, as a company. And that was always a great way to start. And so we all have unfair advantages over other people, and we just don't realize it because we all have a life that's lived and has so many unique twists and turns that have taught us so many things that the next person doesn't know. And even if they know one thing, they don't know one of the other things that we know. So I could go through my list. Do you want to go through yours first, Steve?
My list of, well, I mean, I wouldn't.
How did you structure this? I structured it as a list, so.
Yeah, I didn't structure it as a list. So I just had thoughts about it in the sense that, like, in terms of what the concept means to me. The way I see it is that we all have some inherent talents or gifts, not necessarily like something that you're born with, but like it could be like, let's just say if you don't think that you have one, like, trust me that you just haven't discovered it yet.
You probably have many.
You probably have many, and like for example, like for me personally, I consider myself, pretty mediocre at pretty much all things. Like I've had
me too.
I've had the benefit.
I consider you pretty mediocre at all things.
Thanks.
Just kidding, of course.
I've had the benefit of being able to. I put some time. I put some time into music production, but I've seen people pick it up way faster than I did. I just put a lot of time into it, right? So anything can be learned, given enough time and effort. I'm probably overall like a very slow learner, to be honest. So for me, I think like if there's anything I excel at, it's probably more like hand-eye coordination stuff, like pattern recognition. So it's always been pretty easy for me to like pick up an instrument and learn it fairly quickly. So I've probably slowed down in that respect now that I'm a bit older. But when I was a kid, I basically taught myself how to play guitar, and I did it pretty quickly. And it just felt like really natural to learn it. Over time, I took it more seriously, and I got pretty good at it. And then when I started getting interested in music production, and especially in music licensing, that became and still is my secret weapon. Or what I would consider to be like my unfair advantage, as they say, right? So playing acoustic guitar was actually my entry point into writing music licensing tracks, and it all stemmed from that. So that I started writing for a library and doing like acoustic kind of indie stuff. That was like the first types of licensing tracks that I ever wrote. But if you don't have any experience with an instrument under your belt, like, don't worry about that, because like, I mean, one of my close friends is a very successful music producer, and he has no musical training whatsoever. He started off as a DJ, and that was his entry point into like the music world. And you could take someone like Rick Rubin, for example, who's probably one of the greatest music producers of all time. Has no, he never twists any knobs in the studio. Has no real interest in the technical stuff, but he's a fantastic listener. He has an intuitive sense for like truth and sincerity in music, and it's his gift to be able to kind of like steer his whichever bands or musicians he's working with in the right direction. That's his unfair advantage. He's just a really great listener. So it comes in all forms. You can certainly, if you put the time in, you can become great at anything, but we all kind of have some natural things that we're maybe kind of predisposed to be good at, and it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be a musical instrument. It can just be a sort of intuitive sense for some things. So those are sort of just my thoughts on the idea and the concept.
That's cool. And again, I think everyone, the thing they have to do, and this is what I do, is look back at my life and say, okay, what are the things that gave me unfair advantages all along the way, not just now, but raised in a musical family. Dad was a band leader and a trombone player. Mother was a 40-year church organist and piano teacher. I'm a keyboard player. I didn't take piano lessons that much, but anyway, I was a composer. I started writing songs when I was 13. I was in choirs at our church and touring and doing performances every year for 10 years growing up. I was in a winning high school marching band that was traveling all over the place. Mm-hmm. So all of those things, and just through that point, just up to 18, already I had a bunch of stuff that other people didn't have, and it was unique and different. And most everybody listening to this podcast had a life up to 18 where they had, as far as our stats are concerned, up to 18, everybody has all those experiences. Now, they could be good and they could be bad. Bad experiences are also good for you to have as an advantage because you know what not to do.
Exactly,
a little bit. But then, since I was writing songs, my dad just happened to be a freak for equipment and always had a reel-to-reel deck and microphones and stuff, and then bought a grand piano, which is now in my living room, when I was 16. And I just was recording on his equipment and was starting to record my stuff and then other people's songs, friends' songs. And so I had that advantage. My parents paid for me to go to college for the first time. Not for the first time, but I say for the first time because I went to college 5 times. But for the first 3 years at UK, and then I quit that to go tour with a pop band. That's another advantage I had. I went out and was on the road, just like you've done. Gone out and had that experience out in front of people. I ended up in Chicago, a big city that I did not know anything about, coming from a relatively small college town, and in Kentucky, and then going to Chicago. Anybody who grows up in a small town in Kentucky should go live in Chicago for 4 years because it'll really give you a lot of advantage in your head and in street smarts and things.
Cool.
I went to college again while I was there. I had sports experience when I was there, working as college and professional sports there for a while. Got to travel a lot with that. I owned my own business for 31 years. I started a business in 1990, basically, just doing one-off little arrangements and stuff for people or whatever. And that grew into a production business. I worked corporate and did video jobs and did web jobs, and I did Photoshop jobs. I had my own music all this time. Since I was 13, I was releasing on cassette or on CD. I then worked for 20 years basically as a music producer for people in and around Nashville. I went to college 3 more times in Nashville and then here in Florida. And then I had lots of experience in video as far as shooting and editing and being on camera, either with clients, for clients, or about my companies. I read a lot. A lot of people say, how do you know so much? I'm like, I read a lot. I mean, I've read Keyboard Magazine since the 70s. I've read, you can have these advantages. None of these advantages I had to go pay for necessarily. I just had them, and you have them too. And so through all of these things is knowledge that other people don't have. And when you mix these unique things, maybe somebody else went from a small town, lived in Chicago, but they probably didn't then go to college there or work in sports there and get to travel all around the United States with a sports league. It's just a combination of the things that happen to you. Mm-hmm. And all of those are good, even bad things. And one of the things I would always ask clients at first is, what has happened to you, good and bad, that has affected your life? Because that's the stuff we write songs about. That's the stuff that we fight through and we get better through and change our lives for and because of. So the bad things are also great unfair advantages, believe it or not.
It's great songwriting material.
It really is.
If you want to look at it that way. I mean, you had an incredible amount of opportunity, it sounds like, and you took advantage of that, which is smart. And you also have the benefit of just being around as long as you have. It's like, if you're not going to have the same amount of life experience as an 18-year-old as you are as someone who's in their 50s. So it's just like, time. It takes time to gather these kinds of advantages as well.
Yeah. And, when you look at what is you, the listener or the viewer on this podcast, what are your unfair advantages? Well, your life experiences, like I said, your music experiences. Almost everybody I've ever talked to who's come to me to do an album or to be produced in the studio or whatever, or now people I'm coaching about, doing licensing work and figuring that what they're going to do to make music income out. They've all had music experiences. Some are in school, some are going to school, some went to school, some were in bands, some came up with your similar story about just they became a guitar player, they became a piano player, whatever. All those musical experiences, being in bands that traveled around, being in the studio, night after night, day after day, working for people. All those musical experiences are advantages that you have over other people. Education. I know we don't talk a lot about education in our group, and it seems, and I need to do a poll on this. I think I started one, but I haven't really pushed it. But I think it is interesting to find out how many people at least took, let's say, music in high school, or in up to graduating high school.
Yeah.
They were in music. And then how many people pursued music of some kind in college or went to a music tech school or something like that. All that education is advantage. And other work experiences, jobs. My job in corporate was eventually I was doing like little video clips and audio clips and stuff like that, and learned Photoshop and stuff that I still use now. Those are advantages.
You had a
experience.
huge advantage with like getting into YouTube before, like, because I had to learn all that, all that video editing stuff from scratch. I had no idea what I was doing initially.
Well, again,
but it's great to have that experience.
Being old has its advantages, and being in for 2.5 years working for a video company in the 90s, that I had to learn how to edit video. Now, there wasn't YouTube around at that time, but there was Avid, and I worked on big Avid system and edited video. And so, the experience is good, and I've had to use YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and all those things as they've come along for the clients that I was doing music for in Nashville and beyond. And all of them had to have all those things. But again, anybody could have any of these experiences I've had, and they probably have ones that I haven't had. They've probably traveled the world. I've never been. The only time I've ever been out of the United States was on a cruise. So there's people listening to this podcast who are not only in other parts of the world, they've traveled in tons of other places. They know Europe, and they know traveling back and forth to other countries. I don't really know that, except for going to the Bahamas, which is about the only thing I've ever done as far as going out of the U.S.
More cultured than you and I. You could say that.
I mean, so the bottom line for me is that each of us has a long, strange road with all these different weird turns and when you look back, you go, how in the world did I go there and then there and then there, and how did I go to this and Chicago and this and that and this corporate job, and then into video, and then back in the corporate job, and then out of corporate completely and start a studio job and all that. Everybody has this road. It could be, you could call it, I call it God, you may call it fate, or whatever the way that you get on this original road of yours. God or fate or whatever set you down a unique path that no one else has been on. And every stop along the way, I think that's your unfair advantage.
Yeah, and I think also, like, just to relate it to, like, music licensing and songwriting and composition, it's like, I think that, I mean, it's probably obvious to most people, but I think using that unfair advantage or whatever it is that you're naturally good at as a starting point is a good place, to start with like, music production. If you're new to it, if you're new to, like, songwriting, it's like, it only made sense for me to start writing guitar songs, for the sync tracks that I was working on, because, like, I didn't know how to do anything else. Like, all the DAW stuff was totally new to me, but I could put a microphone in front of me and start playing that guitar, and I've heard Daniel talk about this too. It's like when he started writing, Daniel from Stock Music Licensing, when we started writing tracks for Audio Jungle, he was new to the production thing as well. And it was easy for him to kind of just layer in some acoustic tracks. And those were the first tracks that he uploaded and started doing well with. And if it's not acoustic guitar, maybe you're great at the piano. Maybe you're a great vocalist. Those are all good places to kind of start.
Or maybe you're a great programmer.
Yeah, exactly.
You just
maybe you understand music theory really well, and it's easy for you to put together Or maybe you just like understand a genre of music really well. So I mean, like for me, it made sense to start writing hip hop tracks at some point, because like I grew up listening to tons of hip hop when I was a kid. So I understood the genre pretty well. You know, I'm pretty comfortable writing in it. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of makes sense. You know, I don't know if you'd call that an unfair advantage, but in a way it is, just because it's like I had so much time listening to a certain type of music.
Well,
I understood it.
It's not unfair. The word unfair is not fair. The word unfair, what it means is other people might think it's unfair. Well, that's no fair. You were raised in a musical family, so of course you're musical. Or it's no fair. You got to be in choirs or bands, or you got to be a producer. You got to work in Nashville. It's no fair. Well, there's other things that you've got to do that I haven't got to do, and it's not that I think unfair advantage is kind of tongue in cheek a little bit.
It is tongue in cheek, and it's kind of a clicky term, you know.
Yeah.
But what it's saying is that we all have privileges.
I think unique
that we
advantage.
can take advantage of. Yeah.
Unique advantage would probably be a more fair title of this. What unique advantages do you have over other people? And just finding what those are and then exploiting them. You have to do something about it. One of the biggest problems and the hardest things to teach people is to actually do. You can teach them what to do, but you can't make them do it. You can't put a gun to their head and make them do it. One of the reasons why it's probably a little easier to work with composers than it is artists is because composers are actively composing. They know how to compose. They are working on their stuff. Artists are almost like helpless children in some ways. They don't do anything. They don't know anything. They're singers. They're maybe piano player and singers. But beyond that, they have no idea what to do with their careers. And so someone has to come along and say, okay, Whitney Houston, step in front of this microphone and sing this song, you know, and I'll do the rest. I'll produce it and put it out there and all that kind of stuff. Now, Whitney Houston was a singular talent. You can look at tons of other people who were like that. By the way, I just have to mention this while I still remember it. The last dream I had this morning before I woke up, I was sitting in a closet with Paul McCartney and I think another Beatle. I can't remember. It was either Paul McCartney and someone like Paul Simon. It was another songwriter. And they were singing songs and writing songs. And I sneakily got out my phone and I pressed record so that I could later on show everybody. And I told my wife about it. And she said, well, show me. I'm like, it's not on here. It was a dream. So I just had to mention that since we were talking about singular talents. No, that's definitely. I'm not sure my dreaming is an unfair advantage. It's a little bit of a disadvantage.
Maybe. It's something. I don't know. I don't know if it's an advantage. It's just.
So, anyway, that happened. So, to wrap this up, any last thoughts on it?
No, I'll just say, don't fret if you feel like you haven't found your advantage yet. It will find you in good time. But
it will. Either you will have that experience coming up, or you've already had it and you have to go back and look through your life a little bit. And sometimes I have to have people journal their life a little bit.
Yeah.
And I will tell them before they come into a coaching session or a consult, I'll say, write down the big events, the things that have happened to you. Back when I used to do mainly gospel music, I would say, tell me the things about, since we're focusing on gospel music, tell me the big highlights of your music life and your ministry life or your church life. And because we were going to blend those two. If they were jazz artists, I'd say, tell me the background of your playing and your gigs and all that kind of stuff. Write them down. Know what they are so I have a sense of what your life experience is. And I think if you go back and do that with your life, just like I went through and kind of did my bullet points. That's a long story, but and you got the short version. Can you imagine? So, but those bullet points will let you start to see what your advantages are and how you can, and then maybe you can take advantage of them in your music making and in your income generating. So
totally, yeah, totally.
Okay, cool. Well, that's that section. Would you like to move on to some questions that I have listed here?
Let's do it.
I have, I looked through this morning some questions I've gotten over just the past week, really, off my YouTube channel. And thank you so much for everybody who's watching the YouTube channel, and especially people who leave really nice comments and ask questions that are fun to return. And so here are a few of them. One person asked me if they could pull songs out of non-exclusive libraries to put into exclusive libraries. So if you put something into Pond 5, you put something in Motion Array, if you get an opportunity for it exclusively, can you take it out of there? And the answer in most cases is yes. Now, there are several libraries. One of them is AudioSparks. One of them I just signed up for the other day, I think. I can't remember which one it was. But they said, oh, I didn't sign up for them because they said this. You have to put your songs up here in perpetuity. Now, they're going to be non-exclusive, but you can't take them out because we're going to be marketing them and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
And so some of those libraries, you probably legally still can. I mean, you could just say, listen, you could find a reason to get out of it, but they ask you not to.
This is the experience that you've had with AudioSparks, is it not?
Because AudioSparks.
Yeah, because they are kind of have the same thing where they want your tracks in perpetuity, but you've managed to take a few out of that library, right?
And I may have an unfair advantage with AudioSparks because I put so much stuff in there that they don't feel like that I am going to, like, I don't just have 5 songs in there. And if I take 2 out, then it's going to not give them as much stuff to work with. Yeah. I have hundreds of songs in there. I have 100 to 200 songs in there. So, or at least audio files in there. Mm-hmm. And so if I have to take a few out and say that, hey, my label said I need to take a few out, then they'll be like, they'll take them out. But in general, if with Pond 5, Motion Array, Audio Jungle, Pond 5 and Audio Jungle, they're gone instantly.
Right. I mean, now, Motion Array has 30 days, right?
And a few of them are 30 days. vFind Music takes 15 to 30 days, it seems like, to remove them. But they will remove them. But it just takes a while for them to actually get out of the engine. And that's fair enough. So, yes, the answer is usually yes, except you may have to have a waiting period, especially with Motion Array. And I know there's other ones that are 30 days. I know Deposit Photos is instantly. I know Dreams Time is instantly. So each one of them is going to be a little different, but the main answer is yes, you can take your songs out of non-exclusive stock libraries and put them into exclusive things. But you'll need to tell the company that you're signing to that it's in these libraries, and it's going to take a few weeks for it to get out. Usually they won't care. And usually it'll take that long just to get the contracts back and going and all that kind of stuff. So you've got time.
Yeah.
Okay, question number 2. Do music libraries involve a middleman who gets paid before you? And the answer that I've seen is no. Now, on the sync side, a lot of times your library is a middleman. Your library is like I'm with a library that's connected to Sony BMG. So the money goes to Sony BMG from the client. Like the songs I just had used recently, that money, if there's upfronts, that goes to the music library I am signed with, and then it comes to me. So in some ways, that library is the middleman between me and Sony BMG. But other libraries I'm with, no, money that's paid to them, those upfronts come to me, or a part of those upfronts come to me. Non-exclusive royalty-free libraries, as far as I know, there's no middleman between the two of you. Would you say that's true?
Well, like you said, I think that the library is the middleman. They're
between you and the
thing in between the client and you selling music. So
yeah, there is. I think this person was asking about royalty-free music libraries, if I remember right.
Right.
And I told him the answer is no. It goes to them, and then they pay you the next month on the 15th or whatever their payday is.
Yeah, I guess you could think of as the payouts, like the whatever program they're using to send the payouts, like PayPal is another middleman.
PayPal could be a middleman.
Yeah, which takes like a transaction fee, which adds up if there's enough money going through it.
Okay. Question number 3, can I put non-exclusive stock music on my Spotify and Apple things? And the answer is absolutely yes.
Yep.
I think that 100 Audio says something about not putting it on those things. Have you seen that in
They
their
say a lot of
language?
weird things, but I think if you're non-exclusive, the language gets so confusing with 100 audio base. It's all translated from, from Mandarin or whatever. But like I think if you're non-exclusive, then don't worry about it. That's the definition of non-exclusive. Like if it's non-exclusive, you can put your music anywhere. You should be able to. And if there's any kind of like stipulations about it not being on Spotify, then I just would not consider that to be non-exclusive.
And this next kind of sub question is, what about exclusive libraries? And that will always be up to the library that you're working with.
Yeah, they'll let you know.
The three I'm in don't have a problem with it. It's not their first goal. And probably they would just as soon it not be there, but they don't mind if it is. I think it should be, because if someone hears my song in a show and they do a Shazam on their phone to see who the song belongs to or who that song is, I want them going to my Spotify thing.
Mm-hmm.
I want that song to blow up on Spotify. So the answer is usually yes on exclusive libraries, but again, it will depend on the library.
Yep.
All right, question 4. I joined Motion Array, but I can't submit songs. Why is that? And this is a common one I get from people who join Motion Array they just join it. In other words, they're joining as a customer. Motion Array and most of these libraries, even Pond 5 and Audio Jungle, I think, they require you to join them first and then join as a contributor. Mm-hmm. So there's like a second part. And Motion Array is one of these. You have to sign up, and then you have to go and sign up as apply as a contributor. And so this might be on other libraries other than Motion Array, but I've had at least 2 people come to me now and go, I signed up on Motion Array, but I don't see where to submit my songs. And what they didn't do is actually go to the place that lets them submit songs. And that's one of the things that my upcoming course / ebook will talk about, is the actual page to go to sign up to be a contributor. And if you're not, and if they require another sign up, they'll let you know. In other words, you go to the page and say, I want to be a contributor. They'll say, you need to sign up with our site first.
Yeah, and just to, so it's not confusing to anybody, like you don't have to like subscribe to one of their paid plans to be a contributor.
No.
You just have
and
to.
You shouldn't.
Yeah,
there's no reason to.
Yeah.
So don't sign up for a $19.99 a month account because you think that's the way in.
Unless you need some some After Effects templates.
I pay Envato every month. Yeah. Because I use their stock videos and stock images for my websites, for my client videos. For all that stuff.
You should switch over to Motion Array. I think they got a better selection.
Huh. I'll look.
Yeah.
I can see.
And it's cheaper too, I think.
It might be.
I think Envato's like $30 a month.
My daughter uses it too, so I'll have to check with her because she's a wedding photographer and a designer, so we both use it for stock stuff. But anyway, and last class question I have here is, someone said, is 2.5 minutes really a song?
What does that mean?
Well, in general, the accepted length of a song that you would submit to a royalty-free or an exclusive library is going to be in the 2 to 3 minute range. That's what cues, if you want to call them cues, CUES, or songs that you would put up. The majority of them run probably 2.5 minutes. If you look at Taxi, when they ask for songs, to be, sometimes they ask for 90 seconds to a minute and a half, or 90 seconds to 2 minutes. But most of the time, 2 to 3 minutes is kind of an accepted thing. Now, I have tons of songs on royalty-free libraries that make me money that are over 4 minutes. So it's not that they have to be 2.5 minutes. But the thing about this question is, 2.5 minutes really a song? Well, you can find 2.5 minute songs on Spotify all day from Justin Bieber and all these big artists, Ariana Grande, and all of them have 2.5 minute pop songs. Radio has always preferred as short as you can make it. If you go back and listen to songs from the 50s and 60s, they were all a minute. They were lucky if they were 2 minutes. I mean, they were really fast, and they got through it, and were done. So that's always been a thing. but the answer is, well, what are your thoughts on this before I tell you my answer?
Well, I guess I'm surprised at the question. I mean, like you said, it's like I think that yeah, most songs are in between 2 and 3 minutes, at least pop songs. That's pretty standard. I can't even tell you how many songs I have that are like under 2 minutes in Motion Array, and like I have a lot that are about 90 seconds. Like the one I just submitted for Taxi is 90 seconds, or no, maybe it's just under 2 minutes. But I think short and sweet is pretty standard with licensing tracks. I think
that's why you also make a loop, so that people can loop it if they need it to be longer than 2.5 minutes. They can.
So much of the music that I upload to these libraries is all loop based, and it's just finding ways of making that loop interesting and kind of evolve. I think trailer music maybe is a little bit longer, maybe in the 3 to 4 minute range or something like that. But yeah, I think depending on the kind of genre you're working with, it's like a 2 minute track is something in between 2 and 3 minutes is very, very standard.
My answer is yes, it's a song, but that's not the point with music libraries. The music library is not always to provide them a song. Some people want some libraries or music supervisors or sync agents want songs because they want the vibe or the artist vibe or whatever. But you have to think about these libraries. You're not making songs necessarily. A lot of times you are making pieces of music that can be used in a video, that can be used in a scene,
like a 15-second scene, or less. It's exactly like you said. It's like some of these, most of this stuff is you're not going to hear the whole of the track. You're going to hear a tiny snippet of it. So that's why most of the licensing music I create is based on a 4 to 8 bar loop, because there's no point in it being some long-winded composition. It's just that's not the point really, because like you said, it's like when it gets used, it gets cut down to like barely anything.
And if it's used in a video for a YouTuber, it's going to be underneath the vocal so much that you can barely hear it. It's more like just space filler, or so. Yeah, it is pretty standard. 2 to 3 minutes is pretty standard, I think, in the entire music industry for pop songs and these kinds of pieces of music that people are going to use. And remember, we are making music for use for libraries.
Exactly.
This is, or as my saying in one of my videos goes, it's not music for you, it's music for use. And we're so used to making music for ourselves. What we like, what we think our fans will like, what we want our fans to like, we make that. But in this type of use, and this type of profession in the licensing world, you're making a music piece that someone can use for their own uses, not because they think you're awesome. So it's really not about you, and it's really not about how cool and great a song is this. Is this piece of music usable in my production? And that's my answer for that.
Exactly.
Very long answer for a short question. But it's way longer than 2.5 minutes. But anyway.
Is that even an answer?
Certainly not usable in licensing.
I'm going to have to edit this out. I'm cutting this down.
Luckily, that's all I have for this episode. So unless you have anything else you want to talk about,
we can wrap it up there. That was good.
Okay, good. Well, I hope you guys find your unfair advantage. I hope this information has been helpful to you,
or your unique advantage.
Your unique.
That's what we'll rename it, the unique advantage.
I like that. All right, very good. Well, we'll see you next week, and keep making music income, and make sure you go check out the new site, makemusicincome.com. I should know my own website. And watch our videos and get in touch if you need to. We'd love to talk to you.
Yeah, take care, guys.
Thanks.
Talk to you again soon.